everybody, welcome to Dakman Productions and welcome to Conahey Southern, my HO layout. In case you missed it, I announced a secret project last week. And no, I'm not getting out of O gauge. I still have Conahey rail, high rail layout, and that Conrail era. So, once again, catching you guys up, I was missing that modern day era of trains, in other words, what you would see today. And I'm focusing on CSX. Next, I want to thank everyone who sent me such supportive and positive comments about my decision. The outpour of support from the viewers was so helpful, and it meant a lot to me. I absolutely loved reading all the comments on that secret project video. Again, I was afraid of announcing doing this because I figured maybe viewers wouldn't understand, but I was totally wrong. So many supportive comments. People saying, yeah, that just brings another scale to talk about on Dakman Productions, which is true. I never thought about it that way. And so today's video, a viewer from that video gave me a great idea. I thought it was cool. So my first HO video is going to be the pros and cons of either choosing HO versus O gauge. Now, people in the comments have also said they watched my videos because of my honesty, and I'm going to keep those pros and cons honest with each gauge. Now, granted, I've only been to HO for a year, but I've been into it long enough. I think I can give you good pros and cons of getting in, picking a gauge. And the reason why I think this is a good video is because HO and O gauge are your two most popular gauges, and people out there who are thinking about getting into model railroading, I think this would be a good video for them, because the first question they're going to ask is, what scale is good for me, or what scale should I pick? And there's other scales besides O and HO, of course. Since I have O gauge and HO, I think I can give you some good pros and cons so you can make the decision. Because I'm going to leave this video as a no BS video. I'm going to let you decide what is best for you. I will say my thoughts and pros and cons on each different subject. And in the end, you can make your own decision of which way you want to go. I'm not going to push you one way or the other. So first, here's the disclaimer. A more comparable scale to HO would be actually O scale 2 rail. O scale 2 rail shares a lot of common things with HO. HO and O scale 2 rail are almost like really close to each other. In other words, you can run them conventional, DCC. O scale 2 rail has track that is more lower in profile, which is the code number of your track, which we'll get into here a little bit later in the video. I'll discuss that. And that's why they call O gauge 3 rail high rail, because the rail on that is higher than what's on a 2 rail O scale layout. O scale 2 rail also has KD couplers instead of truck mounted couplers. The wheel flanges aren't so deep, so it's more closer in comparison to HO. However, we're not doing a comparison video. We are doing a pros and cons of two of the most popular gauges out there, which is O gauge 3 rail and HO. So to kick this video off, let's talk about the letters HO. They actually mean something. HO means half O scale, or half O. So it's half the size of O. So let's talk about pricing. Obviously, since HO is half the size of O gauge, the prices on these HO trains are going to be cheaper. So there's one thing right there, right off the bat. However, the pricing as far as per scale is relatively just about the same. So in other words, if you take a HO scale Athearn diesel or Scale Trains diesel with DCC and sounds, you're looking at $300. That's what you're going to pay. That's in 187 HO scale. However, you double the scale and basically the price also doubles. You're looking at $600 for a Lionel Legacy diesel. So basically, the price per scale inch is the same, even though they're two different scales. So you're paying the same price per scale of the product with sounds and controls. I hope that makes sense. So let's talk about track. I found that track is going to be one of the higher expenses even building your layout. Whether it's O gauge, HON, or whatever it is, track is usually pretty expensive. Now there is pre-made track with roadbed in each scale. So for Lionel O gauge, you have fast track and you have MTH real tracks. And HO, you have Bachmann HO track, roadbed already on it. If you like realistic looking track, then in O gauge, you have Gargraves with the Phantom rail, you have Atlas O, and then you have Ross. So you have those three without the roadbed, and you put, you lay it out and you put your own roadbed in. And also, they sell pre-bent curves and flex track. So you have your choice of making your layout totally out of flex track. If you're not comfortable making curves, then all three manufacturers also offers the curves already bent. Same thing in HO. In HO, you have Pico and Atlas that make either flex track and some, I believe Atlas makes pre-bent curves. Not sure about Pico, but I believe they do. Those who would like to have more realistic looking track, you have a choice in HO as far as code 80 or code 100. Now I know this is something new to a lot of people out there, especially those who are in O gauge, because we all have the same code track. So what does the code mean? The code is the profile height of the track. So you have 100 and then 80 is not as high as 100. The reason why HO people like to use code 80 is because it's more realistic to the real thing. One of the disadvantages, in my own opinion, is when you use something prototypical to the real world, you're going to run into real world problems. Now you're prone to derailments because the height of a track is not as high as code 100. But again, on the other side of that, it does look real. Now in a world of O gauge 3 rail, there's only one height of track. It's all the same height. That's why they call the O gauge club layouts high rail. Now to get into different heights of track in O, you would have to go O scale 2 rail. Okay, so we get into controls. As far as controls, I found it's just basically a different language. I was panicking about getting into DCC because I've seen so many people saying it was hard and the CV codes and this and that. And quite honestly, once I seen how it worked and how you looked at CV codes and how you read them, and my nephew's into HO as well, and he showed me a lot of different things. It was so cool. I could not believe it opened up a whole new world of language. And compared to O gauge, it is a different language because O gauge, you're talking from the track to the locomotive. You have the Lionel Legacy and TMCC, which work through a remote control. Then you have the Lionel Lion Chief, which is a app on your phone. And then you have the MTH DCS system. Lionel is using Bluetooth. I found, in my own opinion, at first I'm like, why would I need Bluetooth? That's just a waste of my time and money, and why should I pay for it? But I quickly changed my mind because Bluetooth has come in real handy. And here's why. So when you're running trains at home on your own layout, you basically have no problems because you're right there in your own home. You're wide open space and you have a small layout and you're the only layout there. However, when you go to a club or a train show, that's when Bluetooth really comes in handy. Because especially at a train show, you are with other clubs. So you got the radio frequencies interfering with each other. You have the way the buildings are made. You could have interference there. People walking through with their cell phones, the Wi-Fi. There's a lot of interference there. And so the clubs, sometimes, you don't see it, but I do. Behind the scenes, they're usually frustrated because of all these issues. So they're constantly battling these issues, which you would normally not have at your own home, but you would at a show. And not too many people realize that because they keep all that behind the scenes. They don't want to see they don't want the general public to know that they're frustrated, but they are. So I found, and even the Raritan Valley High Railers were pretty impressed. The last show, they were battling issues with interference. However, I was able to take my Bluetooth Lionel locomotive and I put it on a track and I was able to go without problems. Why is that? It's because with a Bluetooth locomotive, all you need is power to the track and your phone, and that's it. You don't even need a Lionel Legacy remote or TMCC remote. You can all do it by the Lion Chief app on your phone. And what's nice about Bluetooth, it talks directly to the locomotive. And the problem with the 990 remote and the TMCC remote, you got the remote that talks to the track, and the track sends a signal to the locomotive. It's got to pick that signal up with an antenna. And you have too many places where it's trying to connect to that locomotive where it could lose connection or get interference. With Bluetooth, you're talking directly to the locomotive. That's why you're able to override a 990 remote with a Bluetooth locomotive with the Lion Chief app. In other words, I can steal locomotive from somebody if they're using a 990 remote using the Lionel Bluetooth Lion Chief app. In the world of HO, they have not stepped up to offering Bluetooth from the factory. However, there is Bluenami out there. Maybe that's something in the future, but there's only so much room in an HO locomotive that you have. So I absolutely love my Bluetooth Lionel locomotives because I know when I go to a show or a club, I can put them on a track. Just give me power and I'm good. I don't need nobody's remote. I'm not bringing my own. I got my phone. I'm going to run and leave everybody behind. The difference between the Lionel Bluetooth and the Bluenami is the Lionel Bluetooth, you can only run one locomotive and you cannot do any MU or lash ups. They call it, Lionel calls them a train, but a lash up. And however, with the Bluenami, you can MU or lash up multiple powered locomotives. So that's one advantage that Konahey has over the Lionel Bluetooth. I would like to see Lionel update theirs to where you can run multiple locomotives and lash them up. I don't know if that'll happen. Now, also on the world of O-gauge controls, if you buy, there's two different manufacturers that have their own control systems. That's one of the biggest downfalls. So if you like the Lionel and you like the MTH, well, the Lionel remote is not going to control an MTH locomotive with DCS. It's just not going to. There is some functionality with the MTH with Lionel, but it's very limited. So there is no compatibility in the world of O-gauge without buying multiple control systems. So it gets kind of complicated. In the world of HO with controls, DCC, you can buy any controller out there that you like, whether it's Digitrax, NCE, there's multiple ones out there. It doesn't matter. There's no manufacturer specific control system out there. So when Atlas or Scaled Trains or Athearn makes their locomotives, they don't offer control systems because they're already out there. And with DCC, the codes are pretty much the same. But in all reality, each control system, you're going to have to learn whether it's O-gauge or HO. So in other words, I'm used to a Lionel Legacy remote. If somebody hands me an MTH DCS remote, I ain't going to know how to use it because I never used one before. So I'm learning that all over again. So it does take a learning process no matter what control system you're going to use. And even in the world of HO, I have Digitrax. If somebody hands me an NCE, I'm not going to know how to use it without them showing me. So each remote, obviously, you're going to have to learn whichever one that you choose. In my mind, my opinion, one isn't any harder or easier to learn than the other. It's just a matter of what you're comfortable with. That's why I recommend you join a club. A lot of clubs will offer, they have their own control systems. They'll offer you a remote to use, and you can use their remote. If you like it, that's a system that you're going to want to go with. Sometimes a visit to the hobby shop, they can demonstrate a couple different control systems for you. Unfortunately, with the Lionel Legacy and MTH DCS, well, we all know that situation. There's none to be had. Lionel is not going to be offering the Legacy 990 remote anymore. They're supposed to come out this base 3, so we'll see how that goes. Let's get into the sounds and features of each one. So in the world of HO, you have a ton of different sounds as far as the correct prime mover sound engine. A lot of different bell options. There's probably like 10 or 20 listed in there, and like 10 or 20 different horns. Now, I was a little afraid I'm thinking in my mind it was going to take hours to program these sounds, and it doesn't. My nephew demonstrated to me how easy it was. He took his locomotive, he puts it on a programming track, which you need in HO. You do need a programming track. So he put on a programming track, and he was able to change the CV codes for each horn within minutes. Done, boom, and then he blew the horn for me, and I'm like, wow. Then you take it off and put it on the programming track, change it again. Matter of minutes. Takes it off and put it on. Changes the sound of the horn again. He's done this multiple times within like 10 minutes. Pretty good at it. I was so impressed with how many different horns and bells and locomotive sounds that DCC has as far as options that can, and they're already in the decoder. It's not like you got to go out on a website and download the files and put them in this thing. It's already in there. So with Tsunami 2 and lock sounds, the ESU lock sounds, there are those options with all them sound files are already in there. You just change the CV codes and you're good to go, and it changes it for you. So it was pretty exciting to see such a large selection of library file, and a DCC chip. It was amazing. I was blown away. For O gauge, at least the stuff made in the last 4 or 5 years, maybe less, right around there. Let's give that a time period. You have like 4 or 5 different horn sounds you can choose from, 4 or 5 different um, bell sounds. You cannot change the sound of the locomotive engine itself. So the library of sounds in O gauge is nowhere near of what it is in HO. Now there's going to be people that's going to argue with me, well, for the MTH Proto Sound 3, you can go out there and you can change those sounds. Yeah, you can, that's true. However, it's nowhere near as easy as it is in HO. It's not. You have to plug your locomotive into your computer. You got to go out on the internet. You got to download the file. Then you got to load that file into your MTH Premier locomotive. This could take an hour or more. HO is more or less on the fly where you can change the CV codes and you're done. And you can't mess up, because even if you think you messed up, you can actually put it back on the track, change the CV8 code to 8, and that resets the locomotive again, and back to factory, and you're back to where you were. So let's talk about features. Well, in the world of O gauge, the locomotives, especially the steam locomotives, depending on whether it's legacy or vision line, they have a ton more features than their counterparts in HO. You have locomotives out there in O gauge that have a depleting coal load, that have the blow down steam smoke in them, that have the swinging bell, the smoking whistle. When you blow the whistle, smoke comes out of it. So there's a lot of different features available in O gauge steam than an HO. And obviously, HO is so small, I don't think you could get all them features in there. I want to revisit the price point and quality of different brands in each scale. So for those who are starting out, you can buy starter sets in either O gauge or HO. Take your pick. For O gauge, you have the Lion Chief sets. I'm not sure if MTH offers the Rail King sets anymore. In the world of HO, you have Bachmann that offers HO starter sets. So there are ways to get into either one with starter sets. So you have entry level stuff all the way up to the very expensive stuff. For HO, in my opinion, the best quality detailed locomotives on the market currently is Scaled Trains, followed by Athearn. When it comes to O gauge, you have Lionel, you got the Vision Line, no doubt most highly detailed, most amount of features with Legacy, and then you got the MTH Proto 3 stuff. That's a good product too. As far as stuff that has controls in it, that's currently still being made today. And speaking of locomotives, I think I forgot to mention, whether it's O gauge or HO, you can run either one in conventional. You don't need controllers at all for either one. A DCC locomotive will run conventionally just through a regular transformer. No different than a Lionel Legacy or Proto Sounds 3 MTH Premier locomotive. Even though they have a control system in them, they will run in conventional mode. Okay, final subject is the rolling stock. So when we talk about O gauge, let's just say there's 2 different sizes. But there's a lot of different names that are being thrown out there. But I'm just going to throw 2 at you for this video. So you have O gauge that's true scale, and then you have O gauge that's semi-scale or shrunk down a little bit. And just like anything else, you have stuff that's reasonably priced to stuff that's really high in price, but it's detailed. You know, you can buy a Menards O gauge car really cheap. You know, right around 20, 25 bucks, somewhere in there. All the way to the high end of a Lionel Vision Line car with sound. Same goes with the world of HO. You have your stuff that's really reasonably cheap to the stuff that's expensive. So starting off with the Bachmann HO, you know, you can pick up again relatively cheap, all the way up to some greatly detailed cars like Tangent, scale trains, and those can get really expensive. Speaking of rolling stock, what you pick depends on what curves you should pick for your layout or consider. So if you're like for O gauge, if you want to run semi-scale, then you're going to be okay with 036 to 054 in that range. No problem, it'll run on that perfectly. However, if you're talking about scale size cars running real long trains and you're considering running the full scale Lionel Autorack or the full scale Lionel 86-foot high cube box car or even an Atlas 89-foot flat car, then you should be looking at 072 on up. What you pick or want to pick for freight cars is going to also be an important choice for you when you consider your track plan for the size of the curves you're going to need. So this is where you're going to want to make sure and sit down, okay, I can only fit a 4x8 layout. Maybe you want to consider, if you're going O gauge, to go semi-scale. And yes, I have seen great looking 4x8 layouts that are O gauge. It's really no different in the world of HO. In the world of HO, instead of, you know, they go by radius, which is basically the same thing. So you want to consider your track sizes for what you want to run. So if you pick out 18-inch, which comes in a starter sets, you're only going to be able to run certain diesels and certain rolling stock on that. I would recommend, you know, 22-inch on up if you're running a diesel era. Steam, you're going to have to go much bigger depending on what steam you're looking for. If you're looking at articulated, some of them will run on 22-inch, but I'm sure they'll be a lot more happier on 26. You have track that goes all the way up to 36-inch, so you got some pretty big stuff. And I can tell you right now, like the Daylight locomotive in HO, that's not even going to think about running on 26-inch radius. So there's a lot of considerations that you have to make and decide before you even start buying and planning your whatever you want to go with, either HO or O. And again, I'm not going to persuade you either way. Hopefully this video was helpful in making a decision for you. And thank you again for watching another Dakman Productions video. We'll catch you trackside. Goodbye.